Welcome back, friends, to Guitar Cinema. I have been having such a good time with this new Headrush update lately, I just had to make a video about it. Headrush owners, as you know, since this new generation of modeling products launched, updates have been a bit few and far between. Now, I wasn't actually gonna make a video on this update because when I looked at the release notes, it seemed fairly slim, but the new hybrid synth effect that's just been added to Headrush Prime and Headrush Core has just expanded the sounds I can get from this unit so much, and I've had such a good time with it. I just had to make a video to show you what I've been up to and share my preset with you. So effectively what this one effect is trying to do is give you a version of one of the boss synth pedals, basically. This is far and away the most complicated and powerful effect that has ever been added to Headrush products. I've been a Headrush user since the original pedal board, and I can just see the amount of effort and R&D that's gone into this one effect. It's pretty crazy. There is pages and pages of parameters that you can tweak with this effect. This is the first time I've ever seen text instructions come built into an effect on Headrush. So clearly they have put a lot of effort into this thing, and whilst it isn't perfect, there are some drawbacks that I'm going to explain to you in a minute and some limitations. I have just had my expectations blown away by this thing. When I saw they were bringing the synth pedal, I thought, I had this dream in my head that I would be able to get some of the way towards a Vangelis type sound, like a proper atmospheric Blade Runner 80s type thing. And I've been able to get closer to that than I ever thought I would be able to get with what is really like a mid-rangey, budgety type amp modeler. So the rig here that I have created to achieve this sound is called GC Blade Runner. I'm going to take you through and break down how I've achieved this sound and how you can do it too, how all the effects are kind of working with each other, and hopefully give you a better understanding of how you can build this sound yourself, or maybe even tweak it to be more to your liking. You can download this rig absolutely free. Just follow me on Headrush Cloud. I am on there as Guitar Cinema. So as you can see, the rig is a split signal rig. It's almost a wet dry setup, but not quite. I do encourage you to play and record with this rig in stereo, both outputs plugged in, because there is somewhat of a panned effect left and right with this split signal. There is 3 different sounds I've used within this rig to create that opening demo. The first one is a acoustic simulated type sound for the harpy type noise you hear. So here you can see the acoustic simulator is switched on. The hybrid synth effect is actually turned off at the moment, and that's giving us this sound. This sound, as with all 3 sounds on this, is going into a split signal. We have a stacked delay setup. One of them is 300 milliseconds, one of them is 500 milliseconds. It's then going into a custom impulse response, and then there's a super long version of the 11 reverb at the end. The split signal on top just has a very slight flanging effect on top. It's not super obvious, you could probably get rid of it if it's not your thing, but it just adds an extra kind of flutter to the frequencies that I think is really nice and gets you closer to that Vangelis type sound. Sound number 2 is we turn off the acoustic simulator and we turn on the hybrid synth effect. Now, for the kind of backing chords, like the kind of endless synth pad type sound, I've added the hold effect at the end of my signal chain. So we have the hybrid synth going into a pitch shifter effect with my expression pedal that we're going to talk more about in a minute. We're going through the split setup, the delays, the reverbs, the flanger with 2 custom IRs. Right at the end, we're using the hold effect to give us like an infinite synth pad type sound like this. And until you play another note, this will just keep going permanently. See? It's so like ominous and powerful sounding. Now finally, the sound I've used for the main lead melody on the Blade Runner theme is exactly the same, but I've turned off the hold effect, and this is where the expression pedal comes in. You can see that it's been added just after the hybrid synth, before we go into all the modulation time-based effects. The expression pedal is just on the floor in front of me, and what it's doing is it's giving us that kind of dive bomb effect that Vangelis uses a lot on his synth sounds. So in the fully off position it's just normal, but as you're pressing the expression pedal down, it's going down a fifth, so it sounds like this. This rig presents, I think, just an amazingly powerful and complicated sound that, like, a few years ago with guitar modders, you could just never hope to dream of achieving. And even if they did have a synth type effect built in, it would just sound like total crap. Think the keyboard in your music room at school, basically. Now, the Blade Runner cover aside, my favorite way of using this rig that I've written a whole bunch of like improv stuff with is with the hold effect engaged and with the expression pedal available to me, so I can just dive bomb, select notes whenever I feel like. And I've written what I think is some really like evocative atmospheric sounds with this thing, like this. Now let's talk limitations of this effect. You know, first and foremost, this effect does not play nice with extended range guitars. Now I'm primarily a 7-string guitar player. This is my 7-string Legator Headless Ghost. The low B string on this thing just doesn't work, basically. Here is the E, and here is the low B string, which is currently tuned to A. Kind of goes up an octave instead of down an octave like it should. So just bear in mind, number one, this thing really only works with 6-string guitars. Not a huge loss, I guess, but it would have been nice to get some of those really deep, nasty sounding synth notes. You can use the pitch shifter to some degree to achieve these, so that's something, I guess. The other sort of limitation with this pedal is it doesn't always play nice with chords. So if you're playing a big chord incorporating all 6 strings, you're not always getting the full kind of spectrum of notes in that chord. So you're getting some of the way there. So for example, here's some bar chords using all 6 top strings on this guitar. The only other thing I've noticed that with this effect in terms of limitations is that regardless of which preset you're using in the hybrid synth, there is a little bit of latency. I think some of it is actually intentional, so there's not a lot of transient in there. There is almost like a built-in kind of volume swell ever so slightly with every preset in there where the note kind of comes into fruition gradually. Not a big deal, I just thought I'd mention it. it kind of works really. You're not going to be playing like million note arpeggios with this thing. Like, this is an atmospheric songwriting tool, so it really doesn't spoil the effect whatsoever, in my opinion. So there we have it. After no updates for really too long, if I'm honest, Headrush have brought this update out and just knocked it out of the park. And I don't think enough people are currently talking about just what's possible with this new effect. This is such a great, complicated atmospheric sound that a few years ago I wouldn't have thought this was possible on a mid-range modeling device. Headrush owners out there, have you been using this new hybrid synth effect? If you have, I would love to know how you've been using it. Link me to any videos you've got of sounds. I am going to continue my sonic exploration journey with this effect. If you enjoy this video or you download this free rig and get some use out of it, please say thank you by subscribing to the channel and liking this video. Or even better, you can buy me a coffee via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Anything you can do to support the channel financially is greatly appreciated. Until the next cinematic guitar video, do take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.